And welcome back, everyone. Pre-recorded on Friday. For Saturday, it's Who the Week Who Would Win wrapping itself up for Saturday. We still have Sunday, obviously, and we have Monday and Fridays for next week. But, this one comes to us from Ben McGinnis, Ben Drowned, who asked the question, who won a fight? And this is a unique matchup. Gandalf the White versus Lucy from Elfen Lead. So, excuse me. So this... I mean, don't get me wrong. Sometimes a who and win doesn't have to make sense. Sometimes you just want to see two characters fight, and there you go. But yeah, this is a very unique scenario. So Lucy is what's known as a dichotomous. God, I always get the pronunciation on this off. Diclonus. She is a Diclonus, which is an evolutionary offshoot of the human race. Now. Obviously, she has a dissociative identity disorder, which is why you see her nice and soft and gentle usually, but also can go into psychotic rage mode and kill people in an instant. Her body is not much more durable than a normal person's, though to some degree she can certainly take a bit more damage to some degree, but nothing extreme. She can take, say, the above average human amount of damage physically. But her horns are actually weak spot. If her horns are damaged, I can't remember if she either dies or she is severely weakened to the point she might lose her powers. But more than anything else, her abilities, obviously her main abilities, are her vectors, which are basically these telekinetic, invisible arms which she can use to manipulate objects. And she's also an expert marksman and gunsman, but she's an expert marksman overall. But still. It's these vectors that allow her to do all the things that you see her ripping people apart without actually seeing anything going on. And she can summon hordes of these things on her own. They are usually about as thick as, say, my arm, a human arm. But they are extremely durable and dangerous. Capable of, when it's all said and done, delivering, a massive, island's worth of explosion of damage. Huge megatons worth of force. They are highly durable, can manipulate objects and tear people apart just like other arms can. They are just very, very dangerous. Now, like I said, though, she does suffer from the weakness of being still, by all account, human and human in terms of physical form and durability and all that. It's just that she has these psychic abilities. That's really mostly what we get from Lucy. She does have a few minor skills and traits, but other than that, though, she is what you see. What you see is what you kind of get with Lucy. With Gandalf the White, he is a Maiar or Maiar. Excuse me. Actually, what is the actual name of his race? One quick, because he's a wizard, but he's actually not human. He is he's Inor, which is a Maiar, which is basically these kind of godlike beings or primordial spirits created to help the Valar first shape the world. Being in human form, he is somewhat limited by what he's capable of doing. But at the same time, it's only semi-limited. His powers are still very much on display. Gandalf's, actually that's a good point, Gandalf's age, sadly, his actual birth before the shaping of Adar, unfortunately, his actual age before he died and came back is unknown. But he was well into his hundreds, if not thousands of years of age. In terms of his abilities, Gandalf is first and foremost, very knowledgeable. In fact, that's one of his defining traits. Really, is his knowledge and his wisdom. But he's also, more than capable of going onto the battlefield. Unlike a lot of wizards, he's more than willing to pick up a sword and, fight, and fights in tandem with his staff. His abilities seem to revolve around a lot of fire and light-based spells. He's a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of war. So he can cause the tip of his staff to glow bright white, so he can see in the dark. He is, capable of summoning fire, set treetops on fire. At the cost of shattering himself, he was able to conjure a sea of white flame that caused the bridge under the feet of Durin's Bane to crumble. Similar spells he displays are heating fire, manipulating sparks, and creating massive pillars of smoke. He's also got extrasensory senses. He can see through the darkest night and even into other dimensions, and does have extrasensory perception, which he demonstrated by feeling Durin's Bane while casting a spell. Now, keep in mind, Durin's Bane, for those of you who are actually not quite aware what Durin's Bane actually is, if you're not well versed in domains, and I do want to be sure I'm correct on who Durin's Bane is. Pretty sure I am, but Durin's Bane is the name of the Balrog that they fought. So yeah, it's a freaking Balrog, and Gandalf killed this bitch. Gandalf displays these same powers while as Gandalf the White, but they are enhanced. Like, he literally just set Aragorn's sword afire, incinerated Legolas's bow, basically pulled the axe from Gimli. Like, he can communicate with horses. That's also good too. He was able to shatter Saruman's staff and stripped him of his divine power, which is no small feat, and even went toe-to-toe with Sauron for a little bit to keep his eye from finding Frodo, although that tired him out. As his unrestricted form, Olorin, he has all the previous passive powers boosted to incredible degrees, and the ability to shapeshift. However, even this form seemed to have restrictions, as the Ainur were said to have their powers restricted upon descending to Earth. So Gandalf is actually very powerful and very dangerous if you were to really push him. The question is, how would one fare against the other here? Well, where do these guys have advantages over the other, and where do they lack compared to the other? Well, Gandalf definitely has the experience. I mean, I don't think any of us can argue that. He's actually got the legitimate combat experience as well, and the actual knowledge of how to legitimately fight. Lucy just uses her arms and just goes from there. Granted, she manipulates her arms to her own will, but it's still one of those things where it's only it's only capable of doing so many things, based on what she's thinking. Whereas Gandalf is, wise, has wisdom beyond years, master strategist, so he's got the experience down. He's also not as frail as despite his form looks. So I'd actually say he's probably can take a bit more of a beating than, say, Lucy's actual body can. But really, this is about her vectors, and could they kill Gandalf? Or at least kill him temp until he comes back. And that's a tricky question, because against most opponents, or opponents who don't have other extrasensory abilities, they wouldn't be able to know about the vectors to begin with, so they'd already be pretty screwed. But Gandalf does have extrasensory capabilities. He does have extrasensory perception, which is demonstrated by feeling, again, he felt Durin's Bane while casting a spell. He can see into other dimensions. I have no doubt he could, at minimum, sense the vectors, if not see them. So acknowledging that Gandalf can see the vectors, is he able to fight off the vectors from, killing him, or killing that form of him? Given the amount of them that Lucy can, create, that would be tough. Lucy would most likely be more the aggressor in this fight than Gandalf would, that's for certain. And she would come in, and, vectors coming in, Gandalf can see them. But using a spell, he just kind of propels them back, like the spell he used against Sauron and the Necromancer in The Hobbit. He could honestly propel them back and then use a blinding light to blind her, and then just come in and come in and attack her body. Now, the vectors might try to act on instinct, but Gandalf most likely would be prepared for something along those lines and use a fire spell, which the vectors could only protect her for so much, and we can start to injure her. So he would probably be able to get around the vectors for a while, as long as he's able to keep her distracted. The problem with that is that Lucy eventually would probably pick up on that, and frankly, just to keep herself from being blinded, close her eyes. So, and the vectors can still act on their own. Granted, she can't see now, but the vectors can still act on their own accord and her own accord. So now it's just a matter of, is Gandalf skilled enough with the blade and his magic to bypass the vectors? Because remember, I'm not saying in how many cases. I don't do the percentages anymore. But can Gandalf win a certain amount of times? Absolutely. Can Lucy win a certain amount of times? Absolutely. But if you're asking me the majority, I feel like Lucy's vectors are just going to be too overwhelming, given the sheer amount and sheer power she can deliver. The sheer amount of them is just huge, massive. It's almost like a tidal wave, pretty much, of arms. And the amount of power is equivalent to something like a high octane explosive, which we actually don't see that great of a display of power, at least in the movies anyway. A power demonstrated that very often in Lord of the Rings. Like Smaug probably had the capability because he could raise a village to the ground on his own, but he had the power of like megatons of TNT and just boom of explosion. I couldn't say for certain on that. And then even going into like say the Lord of the Rings, from what I can remember, I can't think of anything that was that powerful, like something that could blow up an island, or at least a giant chunk of an island. I don't recall ever seeing anything like that. But anyway, that's just my thoughts. I'll personally go Lucy for this, even though I think Gandalf could win on more than one occasion. This is due to the fact that he's just got more versatility overall, just because he's got more than one spell, and he's got the age and experience under his belt. Add the fact that he's not human, he could definitely probably get some wins in there. It's just, I think Lucy, while she's not as diverse, the sheer power and skill, or sheer power and, I should say, magnitude of her vectors, I think would be overwhelming for Gandalf. And he'd ultimately either get, just crushed, blown up, or torn apart in the end. But that is just my opinion. Ultimately, what do you think? You think Lucy gets the majority, or you think Gandalf gets the majority? Let me know in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know the review of it at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified, and I'll see you folks next time.